So first up with his view is Rory Stewart, former Secretary of State for International Development. And there he joins us. Rory, good of you to see us. First key question, is your opposition based on policy or on personality?
I think it's basically based on his inability to govern the country well, his inability to run things well. Britain is a very serious country facing very serious crises. Doesn't matter whether it's Russia, Ukraine, or what's happening to our economy. Our economy is in a very, very difficult state. And we need a prime minister who's good at detail, who's serious, who's focused, who inspires international confidence. And instead, we have a prime minister who's lost credibility, lost legitimacy. And it doesn't matter whether you're a prime minister or you're just the manager of a company. Once you've lost that, you can't really come back.
Do you sense also, I mean, that's clear and is analytical, whether folk agree with it or not is entirely a matter for them. I hear that clearly. But do you also suspect that there is something of a vendetta here as well against him, about Brexit, losing his way on policy, both in the Tory party and in the media?
Possibly, yes. I think some people are very angry about Brexit. But if you take me personally, there are many MPs in the House of Commons who voted for Brexit who I have admiration for, who I think are honourable people, who are serious people, and who I think could govern the country well. Boris famously was a pretty come-lately Brexiteer. And the problem with him, and this was something I felt, I worked for him very closely. I was the Minister of State in the Foreign Office when he was the Foreign Secretary, is that he's in the habit, unfortunately, of lying all the time. And that makes it very, very difficult to manage something. For two reasons. One is that you end up lying to yourself and you can't quite remember what you think. And the second thing is it's very difficult for anyone to follow your orders because they don't know when you're going to change your mind.
You debated with him when you sought the leadership of the Conservative Party, so you had that chance, not only when you were in office, and I know that's a totally different scenario, but one-to-one as opponents ready to go. What was he like to debate with?
Fascinating, because I would prepare these things where I thought, okay, I've got something that he said that isn't true. So he said he was going to take Britain out of the European Union by the 31st of October. And it was obvious he couldn't do that. He might be able to do it, but he couldn't do it by the 31st of October. So I thought, well, I'll just ask him how. How are you going to do that? And I thought that was going to be devastating. But of course it wasn't, because he's a very charming man, he's a very funny man, and he knows how to skirt his way around questions like nobody on earth. So the frustrating thing about debating with him, and I think in some ways, I mean, he's very different to Donald Trump in many ways, but one way in which he has something in common is that both of them are very difficult to land a blow on because they don't play by normal rules. You can't say, you said this 1 week ago and now you're saying this. You know, were you mistaken? Are you lying? Because they just won't answer the question.
It's intriguing. I'm listening to that, and a lot of it echoes with what I know about him as well. But here's the real problem, not least for folk like you who've got a clear, crisp, objective critique of him. He was a winner in Henley. He was a winner in London for Mayoralty twice. He was a winner in Uxbridge, and he was a winner across the country. Rory, whatever you and I think about him, them out there like him.
They definitely used to like him a lot. Absolutely true. A lot of people voted for him. He was very, very popular. But actually, his popularity is now very bad. He would go to an election now, the Conservatives would lose that election. Whatever magic dust he had has vanished. And things that people used to think were funny, or in inverted commas, they priced in other words, people thought, okay, he's not too bad. He may not be completely honest. He may be a bit chaotic. He may not focus on detail, but basically things are going the right way. All that's beginning to go wrong. And now that we see the scandals piling up, and remember, it's not just these parties during COVID, it's the lobbying with Owen Paterson, where he tried to abolish a parliamentary committee in order to get one of his colleagues off the hook on lobbying. It's all this stuff around the wallpaper in Downing Street and the lies that went around that. It's the lies around the Afghan dogs and so on and so forth. So in the end, things build up. And I think the public are prepared to let him off once or twice. But the feeling now is that almost every 2 days, something else is happening, whether it's Jimmy Savile, whether it's telling lies about crime statistics or misrepresenting what's happening on employment. And eventually, I think the British public are going to feel we're a serious country and we want a serious prime minister.
Two final questions, Rory. And I didn't interrupt to say, oh, well, he denies this, denies that, like the dogs in Afghanistan, because we'd waste time. I want to hear what you think directly on it. And my two final questions are this. Firstly, and you know a lot of these MPs because you sat with them when you were representative of Penrith and the Borders. If the charge sheet is so compelling as you've outlined, calmly and unemotionally, why are so few of them putting their heads above the parapet and saying, let's have that vote, let's have it now?
I think people have lost their way. The central question to ask them is, do they really think that he can survive till the next election and win the next election? And I think if they look hard at themselves in the mirror, they'll realize it's completely inconceivable that he's going to be able to last for another 3 years and win the next election. So they would be better getting rid of him now. But that's a big decision, difficult decision to make. People are worried about losing their seats. They're particularly worried about who the next leader would be. I would say, though, looking at it now slightly from an outsider, that almost anybody would be a better prime minister at this stage than Boris Johnson. And if they hang on to him too long, they're going to damage the Conservative Party and erode their own positions and their own seats.